welcome, my wonderful legionaries, and I have a special two-parter for you today. This is part 1, placing monuments in your maps and game settings. I was recently asked how and what I consider when it comes to monuments in my map specifically, but when I started to really think about this, it really went so much more beyond where I'm placing them. It really became, what am I placing? Why? And what are monuments? Like, how are they actually defined? Well, I actually started to think about this a little bit, and I came up with a phrase, but this actually says it a little bit better, and then I'm going to tell you my version. A monument is a type of structure that was explicitly created to commemorate a person or an event, or which has become relevant to the social group, and I want you to keep that in mind, the social group as part of their remembrance of historic times or cultural heritage, also very important due to its artistic, historical, political, technical, or architectural importance. In other words, a monument means something to the local populace, or certainly did at one point, and it could be because of an artistic aspect, a political aspect, a religious aspect, I would say, historical, certainly cultural, absolutely, or even just architectural importance. In other words, it could be anything, but if it must mean something to the populace. So, real-world examples, the Parthenon over in Greece. Or what about the Roman Colosseum? Gotta love the Roman Colosseum. This is like a cultural monument to the Romans, right? They had arenas all over their empire, but they wanted this one to be a world wonder for them, the center of entertainment in the empire. There's a cultural monument. What about the Easter Island statues? I don't think we know exactly why they were erected, but maybe this was a cultural or religious monument to the people of Easter Island. Pentry Efan. Efan? I'm going to go with Efan. It sounds more Welsh. I mean, this is like a mini Stonehenge. Maybe religious monument? It's not that large if you look at it, but clearly it meant something to the people at the time. Just a couple of other examples. Stonehenge, of course, itself, a larger structure, very ancient, religious significance, religious monument, clearly the heart of probably the cultural and religious practices at the time. Lastly, it could be just a statue. This is the Hermann Monument, or Hermannsdenkmal. Hermannsdenkmal. Yeah, there we go, I got it right. In the Teutoburger Wald, or the Teutoburg Forest in Germany, to actually commemorate the Battle of Teutoburg, where the Germans absolutely and utterly destroyed 3 legions of the Romans at the time. So here is a historical monument that means something to the Germans, right? So, with all of that said, what really constitutes a monument when you're thinking about placing it? Well, I'm gonna zoom in on this map for a moment. In the context of, really, they don't have one here. This is a village, right? In fact, this is even smaller than a village. This is like a hamlet. And if we take a look, like down here, we've got a maypole. Is a maypole a monument? No, of course it's not. But what if they changed this for a statue? Then I would argue yes. Because a settlement of this size with an actual statue here, clearly that statue is somewhat significant, Maybe for any number of reasons. Maybe he slew the local dragon. That would then be a monument to the village. If the village grew, like significantly, it became, let's say, a town, maybe this statue might become an old monument. It might actually lose its significance. It may get overshadowed by more important monuments, but it would still be a monument, right? So let's zoom in on the village, or the town of Rikadon. This is a little bit larger now, and I'm gonna actually kind of pan around a little bit from the perspective of, do these guys have any monuments? Well, they've got actually this great racetrack up here. Does that count? Yeah, maybe it does. But I would also argue, unless it was really significant in some capacity, including maybe, you know, an emperor maybe funded it to be made in the past or something like that. If it's just yet another amphitheater or yet another racetrack, then probably not, right? But anything here? Well, this is a palace, but a palace, just because it's big, doesn't make it special. Is it special to the local populace? Probably not. Probably not. But it could be. It could be. What if this palace was originally lived in a long time ago and was erected by a very special person? Then maybe it would be a monument. Maybe this courtyard area has monuments within it. Maybe this here is a monument, but the rest of it actually isn't that special. Lastly, if I come over to the other side here, this is just farms and the likes. We do have another temple-like structure here. Again, just being big and expensive does not make it a monument. But if we actually look at this statue here, is the statue a monument? Potentially. It has the potential to be one. But I would also argue, in the context of the overall temple, it probably isn't in and of itself. It may be the statue to the god of the area, but then it's not particularly special to the populace. The whole structure might be, but that doesn't on its own make it a monument, right? Let's give some concrete examples now. Let's go up a notch to actually a small city. Same sort of architecture, we're kind of sticking with the Mediterranean here. And I actually want to draw your eyes to a couple of locations on this map. Now, we have a temple district here. Number one right there. Every temple is not a monument. But is this guy here? Well, he might be. He is unique. He is looking out over the city as a whole. He may well count, right? Likewise, what about this dude here? Big statue over an intersection of roads. He is probably a monument. That big, huge temple right there. It's got like Acropolis sort of vibes, this whole structure, doesn't it? This, because it is so much larger than all of the other temples around, clearly this is a special structure. This is probably a monument, a religious monument in this instance. Lastly, if I pan down a little bit here, look at this young lady with her spear and a shield. She is a absolutely massive statue near the heart of the city itself. She absolutely is a monument. Now, what I'm doing here, by the way, part one is really all about trying to get you to think about different types of monuments. Part two will be thinking about where and how to draw them, okay? But these, I want you to recognize the different types. Like this is just a statue. But the sheer size of him, his placement on this intersection, he's looking out all the way down here. You come into the city and you're staring at this fellow straight away. That is now invoking within you some awe. It is actually creating a sense of wonderment. And the minute you start to get into that, you start to transcend a normal building, a normal statue, something just practical. This then becomes one, if it's influencing your emotion, it's a monument. And that's kind of how I concluded monuments are classified as. Is it creating within the people who live there or frequent that area some kind of emotional reaction? Now, that emotional reaction can be because of its beauty or the fact that it is tapping into their culture or religion, a host of minute details. But do you get that surge of wonder? Do you get that surge of pride? Do you get that surge of emotion? If so, monument, right? There's another one, lastly, over here. Again, another statue, but big and special. Now, I want to quickly switch now to a different map, and I want to show you ones that would not be monuments. These here are almost very easy because of their sheer size. But what if we take a look at the Gaxmore map that I did for Troll Lord Games? Now, this one has a lot of statues on it. And I'm going to give you some examples if I can find some. Because they're so... there's one. Look at... Hello, Wickle Guy. There's a statue. Right there. These, by the way, are also statues. Those little guys right there. Does this make them monuments? Well, they could be. If this was a particularly special person, sure. But these are faceless. They're kind of bland. They're just blobs. They're probably not monuments in and of themselves. Now, this garden structure overall might be. But there's a difference, right? The smaller we go, the less of a chance that it is a monument, unless there's some kind of a history or some kind of purpose behind that architecture or that place or that garden that really means something. So here I would say this little statue maybe is. This little garden almost certainly is not. These little statues here, probably not. There's so many statues on this map, in fact, that I want to say that most of them do not fall into the monument category. It's like they're part of the decor, sure, but they're part of the decor in the same way that the buildings are. It has to be something special. Like maybe the equivalence of the Colosseum, for example. That would count. This would definitely count. Right? Big, special, unique within this city, maybe even the empire as a whole. Let's go down to one though that is definitely a monument, and then a good solid maybe. I'm going to come actually over to here. That little puppy right there. Look how he is so distinct from the rest of the architecture. So that, to me, screams monument. There's something special about this building, right? And lastly, here. This is an amphitheatre, but this is an amphitheatre with an absolute twist. I mean, this has got a very unique design. It's clearly towers above the buildings all around. And it even has little cushions on the inside there, look. This could be a monument because of the sheer expense that went into it. One other example, lighthearted, and then we'll kind of wrap with a summary here. This is getting into a small metropolis now, right? This is a much bigger city. I bring this one up from the perspective of little statues and everything are probably minor monuments, and I want you to start thinking about minor, medium, large, and like ancient wonder or wonder of the world type of deal. There are a couple of monuments in this map, but because it is so large, because the population is so dense, these monuments are also more significant. They have to be, otherwise if there were small little statues here and there, they'd get overshadowed. But I'm also going to show you a monument that you might not have thought of already. First and foremost, let's zoom in on this little square right here. the architecture of this as a whole, together with these water features and the central fountain and the statue on the fountain, this whole area screams monument to me. The love, the attention, the money that has gone into this, but also entrance to the city. Immediately it is conjuring within you an emotional reaction, right? Monument right here. Let's walk down the road a little bit. Let me show you another one. So we come down here, maybe we cross the road, or the bridge I should say. What about this structure right here? What I've got here is a row of trees and water features just for this stretch on the main highway here. Could this be a monument? I would argue no, in and of itself it is a beautiful architectural feature. But if we started to put little statues or something here, those things that make you think about a historical time or a person or a great event, that I would say starts to dip its toe into monuments. So no here, but if this is a statue, then almost certainly yes. Why? It's the intersection. It's the size of the city, this intersecting, and as the travelers are coming in or they're leaving, they're passing this. This is something or someone special. And we want you to remember that person. This, by the way, is a little bit of a unique one. I would say that this is a monument. This is actually a lighthouse, and it's unusual because it's a lighthouse in the middle of town, and it's surrounded by, you know, a little sort of marketplace, as it were. This is absolutely towering, gold-domed roof, etc., etc., etc. And this is a monument. This is almost like the city has been built around it, right? And it has this commanding position in the heart of the city for everyone, even out to sea, to actually see and be guided by. This is almost a land-based version of the Colossus, right? It has that type of vibe coming off it. Lastly, by the way, we've got a palace here, and we've got a hedge maze and so on and so forth, beautiful gardens. I wouldn't say that this is a monument, okay? Because does the palace in and of itself mean something to the broad population? Maybe not. Might mean something to the family that lives in it. I would argue something like this is probably more than a monument, because just look at how much attention the city wants you to have on it. So I want you to think about that between these episodes. This has all been about what is a monument, and versus like how to draw it and where you're going to put it. And in summary, a monument means something to the population, and therefore the greater the city, the greater the town, the greater the population, probably the greater the monument, right? Not only do they have the resources, but they also have the will to actually want to create something big. Plus, it probably has to be bigger just for the sheer population to be able to see it and experience it, right? And that's when you start getting towards your world wonders, as your truly wealthy, high population locations. But at the end of the day, blow by blow, a monument creates this emotional reaction within the local population. And it can be, quite simply, a pile of boulders. So with that said, I'm going to come back in part 2, and we are going to do a deeper dive now into monuments. Where are you going to put them in your cities and your towns, but also in your campaign settings? This goes beyond actually just drawing maps now. As a GM, as a writer, let's start thinking about what types of monuments might exist. Where are you going to put them? That will be in part 2. So until then, remember the Tudeberg. I'll see you all in the next episode and on the flip side.